ran so many tests that confirmed or disputed all these things that I previously believed, and really changed and made me more confident in my approach to targeting it. I really look at it differently now. In the past, I used to create funnels with ads, right? So I would start with the broadest audience, or it could be new, but it's just people who aren't necessarily deep into my funnel yet, with something like a blog post or whatever, right? And then I would remarket to those people engaged with that to show them this other thing in the middle of the funnel. And I'd remarket to those people to show them this other thing. I'm really less concerned about, I've got to hit every stage of the funnel and control my ads to make sure I reach these different people. And I'm more focused on how do I accomplish, this specific type of conversion that I want.
Welcome to the DTC Insider podcast, where online business owners come to find actionable tips and tactics to grow their businesses. Now, here's your host, Brian Roisentul.
Hey, welcome to another episode. I'm Brian Roisentul, your host, and today I'm super excited to interview once again, the third time, Jon Loomer. I'm sure that almost everyone listening knows who he is, but if you don't, he's a meta ads educator who started jonloomer.com back in 2011. That's a long time ago. And his private community, powerhittersclub.com, in 2014. Jon focuses on the most advanced meta advertising topics, publishing thousands of blog posts and videos over the years, and he's now taking short-form video and AI head-on as we head into this next crazy phase of marketing. Hey, Jon, thanks for being on the podcast once again.
Yeah, hey, Brian. Really nice to be back.
Yeah, so for those who are listening to this or watching this right now, it's his third time he's on the podcast, and we have always done it in January. So it's like always an anniversary episode, and it's fun to check, the previous episode we record and see what we said about the previous year of Meta, because, man, there were many, many updates in 2024, right?
Yeah, it was a big year, and kind of reflecting back on the year, it's not only were there a bunch of changes, like I documented 27 changes that Meta made during the year. And that's something, luckily, I'm able to do pretty easily since I blog or write a video pretty much about anything significant at all. But it's also when, I think mainly because of some new features like audience segments, I'd have to go back and listen to our episode a year ago, how I was feeling about targeting, for example, then. I know we were kind of in the process, right, of algorithmic targeting is a big deal and we should start embracing it and all that kind of stuff. But I think it was because of audience segments that I truly accepted it as like, okay, this is actually working and doing what I want it to do, because that additional layer of transparency that didn't exist for manual sales campaigns. We had it for Advanced Plus shopping to a point, because even then I think we only had the existing customers layer at that point that you could break down. Now we had the engaged audience as well. So I think that was the biggest thing for me, because I ran so many tests that confirmed or disputed all these things that I previously believed, and really changed and made me more confident in my approach to targeting it.
So for those in the audience who are not familiar with segments, or those engaged customers, existing customers, and new customers, right?
Right. So within your advertising settings, you have to define. This is one of my requests to Meta. I still think Meta can define this for us, at least like an initial definition, because they have the data. But we define who is our engaged audience. So this would be, for me at least, it's everybody who's on my email list, everybody who's visited my website. So the all website visitors last 180 days. It's like the widest net possible of people who have engaged with you. And it doesn't include stuff like Facebook page engagement, Instagram account engagement. For whatever reason, Meta doesn't include those. So that's also something to remember. So you've defined that. You can also define your existing customers, which would be, like, again, your pixel purchase events during the last 180 days. If you've segmented out your purchases in your email list, it could be app event purchases, offline event purchases, whatever they are, define it with those custom audiences as well. And if anyone exists in both of those segments, they're only counted as existing customers. So the value of that is, until those were available, we basically, if you're going to use Advantage Plus Audience, first of all, and no audience suggestions, or if you use suggestions, doesn't even matter. There's this amount of trust you have to put in the algorithm that is showing it to people that you think are relevant, right? Even if you used original audiences, which I think was the other thing that opened my eyes by using audience segments, the assumption was you have more control if you use original audiences with detailed targeting or lookalike audiences. But even though those audiences are expanded, if you're optimizing for a conversion or link clicks or landing page views, I think most people didn't realize that. This audience segments provide that additional layer of transparency to see, okay, of the amount spent and of, the results I'm getting, what is going to people who are in my engaged audience, people who are my existing customers, and people who are my new audience, which would be anyone who doesn't fit into those two groups. Some of those people could still be people who have engaged with your page and whatnot, but they haven't been on your email list or been to your website or whatever. And seeing that, like, I was consistently seeing numbers like 25%, 35%, 40% of my budget basically spent on remarketing when I'm not asking it to do any remarketing at all. And that just opened my eyes in so many ways. Number one, it is working. It's doing what I would want it to do. Number two, is there any reason to do general remarketing anymore, right? Where you create a separate ad set just to target people who have been to your website because you think that they're most likely to convert, right? Or people who are on your email list, and all those people that I used to do for years. And I have a very large percentage of my budget was just general remarketing. And again, this is a group of people that we see are warm, that are most likely to convert. So that's who we're going to target. So now I'm realizing, okay, well, I don't need to create the separate ad set for that. I don't need to create any of these separate ad sets because the more I tested, it seemed like the way Meta distributed between those groups was the same. Didn't matter if it was Advantage Plus Audience. Didn't matter if it was with or without suggestions. It seemed to be the same. Didn't matter if it was original audiences, going broad, or with using detailed targeting or lookalikes. I had a very similar breakdown no matter what I was doing. So it just, that was the kind of the moment for me in 2024 where I became more confident in how we should approach targeting, really because of those audience segments.
What do you think about the ad there, the messaging? Because I think the main difference, and in the theory, but in practice as well, I've seen it many times, that it's not the same message that resonates with someone that is not, let's say, problem aware, but not solution aware, let's say, or even problem unaware, with someone that is warmer or further in the journey. So where do you think that the change in the messaging fits if we don't have separate communications there?
I really look at it differently now in that, in the past, I used to create funnels with ads, right? So I would start with the broadest audience, or it could be new, but it's just people who aren't necessarily deep into my funnel yet, with something like a blog post or whatever, right? And then I would remarket to those people engaged with that to show them this other thing in the middle of the funnel. And I'd remarket to those people to show them this other thing. Number one, it's really... Now remarketing itself you can do, right? You can isolate those audiences, but it's so much more expensive than it used to be, right? To reach those groups. And the question also becomes is how necessary it is, right? So in just that entire approach and strategy, like you could still create multiple ads that are within different parts of the journey, and those different ads within the same ad set could still be shown to different groups of people, right? So for me personally, I'm really less concerned about, I've got to hit every stage of the funnel and control my ads to make sure I reach these different people. And I'm more focused on how do I accomplish, this specific type of conversion that I want. Like I want to build my email list more, and I want to build my email list with quality people who are likely to buy from me. And so those are really my focuses when I create ads. And then truly, the ad copy and creative are really where your control is now.
Yeah.
I mean,
For
when
now.
you talk about the, yeah.
The copy is gone almost because nobody, I don't know if you have tested this actually, but the copy is really invisible on Instagram mainly, not on Facebook, right? And it's mainly the text overlay in an image or the text in a video. So it's more the creative, but we are like Meta is slowly tapping into that, even though I don't know how much they can do about it, but we could be surprised as always because the authenticity is still key these days. So even if Meta provides with some, I don't know, you provide them with an image and then they create a super entertaining video out of it. I don't know. I feel like that needs to be created by a human for now, but maybe I'm wrong.
I agree. Like, I am stubborn to change to a point, right? So I need to see that it's truly beneficial to me, and I'm going to be a skeptic. It started with the targeting stuff, right? So I was doing a lot of the micro targeting that some people are still doing today that I'm trying to tell them to stop doing. I don't know if they realize it's not like I've suddenly that I've been doing this for the last 4 years, this same approach of broad targeting, and I was immediately on board. I was a skeptic for that, and it took audience segments and other things for me to realize I was wasting my time. I think with AI too, it's like there's a group that is super on board and like AI forward and wanting to be ahead of the pack and is going to use it in every way possible. To a point, that's how you get noticed too, right? Like if you want to build your profile these days and be a respected expert, it's going to be an AI. Kind of like how when I got into Meta advertising, which was Facebook advertising, back in the day, it was perfect timing because no one knew what was going on with Facebook ads. It was confusing. It was ridiculous. It was chaos. So to say that you're a Facebook ads guy, and it was like the best piece of timing of my life, right? The same thing as if you get into AI right now. But I think the problem is there's certain aspects of it that aren't ready, right? So I am not ready to trust AI generated videos and images. To a point. Enhancements, yes. But some of these
AI influencers,
yeah, like creating AI influencers,
like it's so
and like I'm
for hanging out with other human beings for now,
right? Like, and I'm seeing these new gurus out there who are like, oh, churn out 100 of these new influencer videos in 10 minutes, and I'm like, great, but is it really going to accomplish what you want to accomplish? And like, I feel like so much of this stuff, there's such backlash against AI generated images and videos, especially if they're meant to manipulate you into thinking it's real. I don't want to be part of that backlash, right? It's one thing if everyone knows it's AI generated and maybe it's an experiment, whatever. But like the whole point of influencers is they have influence. Like as an AI bot, what kind of influence does this person have? You're trying to deceive people that this is an influencer who loves your product, and it's not. So that's the whole point of having a recommendation or a testimonial in the first place, and this stuff is fake. So that's where I think we're kind of getting ahead of ourselves, and people are trying to cut corners and make this stuff as scalable and easy as possible without really thinking about the user experience.
Yeah. Now, since I started this podcast in 2021, since then, I've been doing weekly episodes and I interviewed over 180, or probably by now, not released, but interviews, 190 brands. This year, many 7, 8, and 9-figure brands as well. And for all of them, still in 2024, Meta is still the number one channel to acquire customers. So the results show that even though they made all these changes, even though almost everyone is using, broader audiences and everything has changed, it's still the best performing ad platform for now, right? But it is. So I guess they have done something good, and whether we like it or not, it is working. It's paying off, right? And it's not some fad. I don't know if it's the beginning of something good or a fad, but like app loving or some other things people are mentioning these days. This is something that has been around for many, many years, over a decade, right? So I think that 2 decades actually, but with ads probably less.
Yeah, I think the misconception, like especially when I talk about algorithmic targeting and how you should not overcomplicate things. You don't need to create all these different ad sets. You don't need to even worry about really detailed targeting and lookalikes and all that kind of stuff. I think the assumption is what that means is, oh, this is super easy now to get results, right? It's not necessarily easy to get results. It's still hard. And that's really going to fall. The main point is stop worrying about everything that happens on the campaign and ad set side. Like keep that super simple. The ad is where the magic does or doesn't happen. And you're not guaranteed to get good results because there's an algorithm out there that's trying to help you. The algorithm also isn't perfect. It just can't be avoided, right? So the people who are like insisting on who think they're not using algorithmic targeting because they're using detailed targeting with original audiences. Oh, you're using algorithmic targeting, right? Because that audience is expanded and we don't even know how much Meta even cares about that original audience that you're using in there. So ultimately it's like, stop wasting all your time there. Not that it's perfect. It's not. Just can't be avoided. Spend more of your time getting the ads right to get to results, because that is also what the algorithm's learning from. So who is performing the action that you want, that you're asking for, right? So if you're optimizing for the lead or the purchase or the link click or landing page view or whatever, you need to invite that action from your target demographic and really repel the people that you don't want within your copy, your creative, your form, whatever it is. And that's the stuff that the algorithm learns from. That's why you have control over your targeting to a point there, and where we need to spend all of our time.
Or do you think that leaves media buyers? What's the place for media buyers in 2025?
Expand your expertise. I mean, I guess it depends on how you define your services, but if it's not at all in the creative space, if it's just creating a strategy for, campaign construction, and then you're collecting the creative and whatnot, yeah, I would expand what it is you offer. I'm saying, same thing for agencies, really, right? And it goes back to as well, if your focus has always been this complex campaign construction, that's how you add value, eventually people are going to catch on that that's not really helpful anymore. I think you need to understand that to set yourself apart isn't there. It's where all the other pain points are, right? So first of all, do you get results? That's probably most important. It's not how complicated the campaign construction is, but it's the copy and creative, it's attribution, it's making sense of attribution, because you can show results easily.
Yeah.
But you can also manipulate results. So making sense of that, making sure that all the API, everything's set up there. So there's still plenty to do. But if all you've done is on the media buying side, I would start expanding.
That's why, for everyone listening to this in the same position, I want to say, at least from my humble point of view, is that at my agency for the last few years, we've been working, and I think I said it in the last episode as well. We recorded a year ago. We've been working the last few years in helping media buyers turn into growth marketers. Not everyone is, we shouldn't force anybody into that. But what I've been talking about with my team is, hey guys, there will be a time, and we are pretty right there, in which we are going to press a button and launch a campaign without any expertise. Choose a goal, like the Apple Store campaigns, to advertise an app. Choose a country and choose to put the ad up there and choose your goal. And I wouldn't say there's nothing else to do. Of course, there's still value in the expertise, but some media buyers there's a lot of ego, of course, here, but there are fewer levers. So what we're doing as an agency, and to encourage media buyers to do that, is to create processes to help them, for example, check. We work mainly with Shopify brands. So check the Shopify backend, analyze certain metrics, try to focus on growing from A to B, not trying to get an 30 ROAS, because as we know, and I think that you have recorded some videos on this as super high ROAS. Now, probably it's a negative thing. It's not even a low scale, or probably it's inflated numbers, probably it's whatever, right? But so it's not about the ROAS anymore. It's about, the growth story, the growth that you can get for a brand in our case, right? So that's what we are trying to do with our media buyers at the agency.
Yeah. Well, and also, look, I don't want to belittle the value of a good media buyer, because a media buyer who's good at what they do is more than just the campaign construction, right? In that strategy. Like, you also have to have knowledge and expertise of all the new features.
Yeah.
And really the fact that, you don't need to touch all this stuff and have that confidence. They need to know about special ad categories and what goes into all of that, and like making sense of the data. And so there's so much that goes into the expertise that I think we take for granted. That because things are constantly changing, it's just more that how you set yourself apart is more there, right? That you're an overall expert, subject matter expert. You're making sure like everything is set up properly to fall within the rules. You don't get accounts banned and whatnot, So really focusing there more than some of these levers.
So you already mentioned at the beginning of the episode, audience segments as one of the features that most impacted at least you and of course Meta Ads in 2024. Do you remember some feature that you don't like, or you cannot probably make sense of why they launched it?
Jeez, man. I mean, there's lots of stuff that's imperfect. Well, I don't understand to this day why there's flexible ad format and dynamic creative.
Right.
So they created dynamic creative. We thought flexible ad format was replacing it, but apparently it's only replacing it for certain objectives. And they're very similar to the same thing. It's just that one is controlled at the ad set level, one's controlled in the ad level. Why is one specific to certain objectives? And that never made sense to me. So I'm still waiting for that to make sense. Like, is flexible ad format eventually going to take over? Which would make sense. Like, it never really made sense to control it at the ad set level in the first place. Dynamic creative. But we still have dynamic creative right now. So I don't know. So that didn't make sense. My discovery this year, it kind of annoys me that it took me this long to figure it out, because this is not a new thing. The fact that click attribution is not unique to outbound clicks. So I think people who don't fully understand what I'm saying there are going to say, oh, of course, like there are different kinds of clicks. No, we have view-through attribution for content conversions. So people who saw your ad, did not click, and converted within a day. And you have click conversion, people who clicked on your ad and converted within 7 days. My interpretation all these years has been, if you click the ad, go to your website, convert within 7 days, that's click attribution. If you don't click to your website, it can be counted as conversion if they convert within a day, because it was a view-through conversion. But you've got this segment of click conversions that can be simply people clicked on the image if it's not a link ad, right? Like a static image. People liked it. People commented on it. People provided any other click and then converted within 7 days. Like, they didn't even have to go to your website from the ad. To me, I've always interpreted that as a view through, except it's a 7-day window. And the problem is you can't separate that. So I have no idea how many of them are happening, but surely it is what leads to some of our discrepancies for click attribution. So that was super frustrating. So, I mean, there are lots of stuff I wish Meta would change. I mean, optimization sucks in terms of anything that's top of the funnel, right? Because the algorithm only cares about getting you that action you said you want. It doesn't care about quality actions. I've been asking for this since like 2019. I think I wrote a blog post about it then. So, like, if it's a link click landing page view, people still do not run traffic campaigns, because Meta doesn't care what if these people are connected to you or not. The amount of remarketing that happens there as opposed to a sales campaign, way less, because it can go after the cheapest possible click, which doesn't necessarily mean they care about your stuff. It's accidental clicks. It's because of the placement. It could be bots before they know they're bots, that kind of thing. So it's that kind of stuff that needs to be fixed that drives me nuts.
Yeah, what about enhancements, like the ads enhancements? It drives me crazy that some of them are on by default, and you need to turn them all on and turn them all off. And sometimes, of course, media buyers are human beings, and it's made for making mistakes. Why not leaving them off? I don't know if there's a toggle for the account, like leave it off as a default. Is there any?
Well, there is within your advertising settings, there's an Advantage Plus Creative section where you can opt in or opt out of the tests. So the stuff that's not even official at this point, right? And I've opted into them because I don't really care that much. But that's also why occasionally I'll see ads where it's like I have weird text because they're doing that text swapping thing that's only part of the tests right now.
Or music?
Well, the music part is actually part of Advantage Plus Creative, where you can turn it off or change the music and things like that.
That's what I'm talking about. Like, can you turn it off at the account level?
Not at the account level,
right?
No.
So
you have to.
I need to manage. So that drives me crazy because it's like, but I was at a party one day and I saw a friend of mine, and he was looking for something on Instagram, and then he bumped into this ad, and he stopped and he said, "I love this song," and I said, "Hey, wait." And he said, "Hey, this is an ad. And this is a song he's been listening to, or he listens to regularly, and he loves the song." So I'm not sure whether he was going to take action or not. He didn't, of course. But he stopped and he said out loud, "I love this song." So maybe there's something good in that. But, my clients, whenever we have, in the beginning, we have these, things left on by accident, said, "Brian, what's this music? Turn it off." So brands don't specifically love it.
No, I know that's the problem. Like for my own advertising, like I don't care. Like at this point, I've let go of all that control because technically it's only supposed to be used to help you. Any of those enhancements, and there's so much whack-a-mole going on, like trying to turn everything off if you obsess over that. So I've just let go and let Meta do whatever it's going to do. But when it comes to managing clients, that's a completely different thing, right? I think that's also where we need to start setting better expectations in this new environment, right? Like this is not 2019 where we're having a very specific ad approved and that's what everyone's going to see. There are going to be variations of that ad, right? And from a client perspective, I think the clients need to be more hands-off. Are you getting results? Great. If not, all right. But because otherwise it becomes, number one, a much more difficult job for us to turn all this crap off. But number two, that crap may be helping you. You may not like it as a client, but it may actually help. So now you're making our job even more difficult by having to obsess over, oh, this client's going to be mad if this certain music is playing, or if this enhancement is applied where it's moving text around, or it's adding background colors and things like that. Like, we only approve this certain version. Well, when that happens, it's the same thing. Like if you start manually controlling all the placements and all that kind of stuff, you are limiting the possibilities and probably hurting results.
Let's talk attribution for a minute, if you want. So you mentioned it slightly when you addressed the click thing, which I didn't know until I read your post. So thank you. And I was very surprised. So for those in the audience who are not really sure which attribution setting to use, and I know it's changing as we speak, incremental attribution as well. So what should we do as advertisers, and which factors do we need to keep into account when choosing one attribution setting or another?
For the most part, I think we can overcomplicate this. If you're optimizing for a purchase, just roll with the defaults, right? Which is 7-day click, 1-day view, and 1-day engaged view, which is for videos. But there's really no reason to adjust that for purchases, especially if you're using broad targeting, algorithm targeting, anything that's not remarketing. The problem really becomes if you're optimizing for anything that can happen many times. Like custom events would be a prime example, right? So I ran into this when I was trying to solve the problem of, hey, I want to promote my blog posts, but I know that link clicks and landing page views aren't effective. So I'm going to optimize for a custom event, like time spent, scroll depth, that kind of thing. But the problem is that's an event that happens multiple times. So unless you limit that, the algorithm is going to do everything it can to pad those numbers. That could be through view-through conversions, people who would have been to your website anyway that day, who are on your who are there and firing that event constantly, padding those numbers. But it could just be one day click as well. So for that kind of event, number one day click only. Don't use 7-day click. So I'm talking about like a custom event for engagement type on your website, right? It happens over and over. 1-day click. You don't want 7-day click. That's going to inflate the numbers. You don't want 1-day view because this is something is either they drive that ad drives them to your website and reads that post or whatever, or that it doesn't. And that's the only thing you should care about. Don't inflate those numbers. You can also use at that point first conversion reporting. So that's another way to cut out that fluff, is that if that event happens multiple times, it's only going to count the first time. So that can be eye-opening too. Like whenever you have discrepancies in reporting, use first conversion and all of a sudden it's cut down and it makes a lot more sense. So beyond that, I would say like any type of lead, 1-day click only. There's like a normal lead, right? Nothing that really requires a ton of thought and investment, a commitment or anything. It's just like, hey, this is a lead magnet. Send me this thing that I want, this free PDF, free guy, whatever. All you need there is 1-day click. But beyond those circumstances, if you're an e-com business, don't overcomplicate it. Just the defaults: 7-day click, 1-day view, 1-day engage view.
What's your point of view about cost caps, cost control? Have you ever used that? Some agencies say that that's the best because they control profitability instead of volume. But then on the flip side, of course, you don't have volume, a steady volume. So are you for, against, nothing? What do you think?
I'd say I'm neutral on it, but I'm skeptical of anyone who claims that, they're getting amazing results. Because like whenever I've tried it, like there are very few people I know of who use it effectively, because for the most part, all it does is say, okay, I'm not willing to, you've got cost caps, you've got like the return on ads, the maximum return on ad spend, or I'm trying to think of what all those are. Minimum return on ad spend, the cost per result goal. You can set all those things. Whenever you do any of those settings with your manual bidding, it's restricting the algorithm, right? So it's something to try if nothing else is working. I don't see it as a normal part of a strategy. Like every client you have, I'm going to use cost caps because this is the most efficient way. Maybe you found some amazing approach because you have all this data that you know that you shouldn't spend over this and you end up getting better results. I just haven't seen that. Again, if you out there have been using cost caps profitably, awesome. They're there for a reason. But I think for the typical advertiser, which is like 99.9% of us, it's really just a last resort. Man, I can't get anything else to work. Can't make this profitable. What if we use a cost per result goal or a cost cap? Is that going to change anything?
Yeah, back in the day, we used to have like a cost cap on steroids campaign before iOS 15. It was like an extra campaign. Back in the day, we used to have like multiple campaigns, right? Not just one or two. And one of them was like, if it spends, it was on steroids because we put like 10x the normal budget just to see what happens. And when it spent, it was a really good day. And when it didn't spend, it didn't spend. We weren't relying on Meta. Probably was the money printing machine days of Meta or a little bit after, but pre-iOS 14, everything was different, right? But these days, probably we go with the algorithm, as you said, simplified campaign structures. And going back for a little bit as an agency, we even needed to restructure our processes, and we needed to restructure even the client onboarding process. Because back in the day, we used to ask them a bunch of questions, Meta account, let's say Meta ads related, like things to, build audiences like interest or anything else. And then it changed. Like we onboarded a client in December. We had a kickoff call today and they filled out the onboarding form like a week ago or so. And we could have, and we put together a proposal for the ad account, let's say, structure without getting information from them. Now we are building a 90-day roadmap and a 2025 roadmap with the seasonalities, product launches, and some other things, but business related, right? How to help them increase or decrease the churn in the subscription, increase AOV. But looking at the ad account, we figured that we could basically launch, and all we needed was the creatives. And guess what? We asked them, this is an 8-figure brand, right? We asked them about the avatars, and they had a branding agency building the avatars for them based on gut. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
So you're basically targeting, the only thing you can control, again, 8-figure brand is based on gut. Before, we needed a lot of information from the client. That's what I wanted to say to put together a proposal. Now, unless you reformulate what you need, but for the ad account, I don't know. What do you need, right? Things related for the messaging, the goals, of course, to support the goals. Do they need email addresses? So let's create a lead gen campaign. Do they need to promote X product or whatever? But I don't know. It's work.
Yeah, really. I think, something I've learned more and more this last year is there's so many complications we can add that aren't as productive as we think they are, because they ultimately work against the goal of the algorithm, right? So whether it's creating multiple ad sets that you don't really need, or it's adding manual bidding to tell the algorithm where to bid and where not to bid, you're restricting the algorithm. You're going to get fewer results. You may not reach your budget, or you're spreading your budget between a bunch of ad sets as opposed to one. And in each case, you're preventing the algorithm from doing what it really wants to do, right? So that's why, when I often promote a simplified approach, it's not that I feel like everyone needs one campaign with one ad set and up to 6 ads or whatever if it's a manual campaign. It's that's where you should start, right? Because everything else, let's say you have $100 a day budget, just as a really just general rule. One campaign, one ad set, you got $100 spent on that ad set to try to generate, ideally 50 conversion events, whatever it is you want per week to be optimal. Now you're saying, okay, well, I want to create these other this campaign for lead gen, this campaign for awareness, this campaign for engagement, and now you're splitting up in 4. So now it's $25 per ad set, and now everything's going to work a little less efficiently. So the same thing happens with the manual bidding. You're probably not going to reach your budget every day. You might not even get close, depending on what you set for a cost cap, big cap, whatever you're doing. So it's not that none of that stuff is ever effective. I think it's most effective if you have the highest budget possible and you're able to restrict from that highest budget possible and still get good results by splitting things up. But for the typical advertiser, the typical client, start as simple as possible. Add some complexity where you feel like you have to, but with always the goal of keeping it simple. Like, do I absolutely need this added complexity?
And talking about need,
I think that's the way.
Talking about need, do we need to keep testing creatives in separate campaigns, or should we test them as we go in the always on campaign?
That's the hot debate these days, right? I do think there are lots of things that advertisers do. The number one are part of their routine that they've been doing for years. Or number two, it shows their value to a client. Like I have this very complicated things that I do, this process that's for testing or whatever. And they fear if they don't have that thing, why am I using in the first place, right? Now, again, it doesn't mean none of this stuff ever works. But when it comes to testing, there are these conflicting things that are happening. You're creating a separate campaign just for testing so that, number one, splits up your budget. So if you have a limited budget already, you've got to take some of your budget from the conversions over here and move them over to your testing. But number two, it's also not efficient because you're competing against yourself between this ad set and that one, this campaign and that one. And to me, it's counterproductive. Right. So if your ads aren't working Put some new ads in there.
Yeah. And then many times, whenever you find the winning ad in the testing campaign and you put it in the old campaign, it doesn't work. Yeah, it sounds like
it doesn't translate. I think the big red flag there is if you do testing, optimizing for something like link clicks, landing page views, trying to find the highest CTR, and you think that winner should be the winner for conversions. No, it's two completely different things.
Yeah. And I whenever we used to collaborate with some agencies, and they each of them have different hard rules. Like whenever they reach 1,000 impressions, you need to do X. Whenever they reach it is like really these days. But yeah.
So you mentioned that.
Okay.
There's another test I ran this year that again opened my eyes. So I was like, what's the contribution of randomness in our results? Right? So I ran a split test of 3 ad sets. They were identical in every way. Same, like there was Advantage Plus audience, no suggestions, same performance goal, same ads. They're all leveraged the same thing. The difference in performance, and I think I spent, I don't know, a couple $1,000s for each ad set. The difference in performance between the top and the bottom was 25%. Just think about all the times we make changes based on a difference in 25%. And we think it's meaningful. The reality is, if I were to keep that campaign running, that test running, they're going to keep evening out, going back and forth. There's nothing special about anything in either those tests, right? Those ad sets or ads. Just that for whatever reason, one is outperforming the other. There's an absolute contribution of randomness, and especially if we're talking about 1,000 impressions. Like that kind of sample size, one conversion makes a huge difference. So it's that kind of stuff. It's like, it's not that, differences don't matter. It's just that we need to stop micromanaging because there's a lot of randomness in there too. And we need to understand meaningful results, the difference between meaningful results and what could be completely random, because it really could be completely random in a lot of cases, and something that's going to reverse eventually. Right. So that was a big learning for me as well.
Really. So I want to be respectful with your time. So great insights as always. I really enjoyed the conversation. So before we go, could you please tell the audience where they can go to learn more about you and your business, of course?
Yeah, jonloomer.com. So JONLOOMER.com. Once a week, I publish a blog post. 3 times a week, I publish a new video. So it's not, those videos are found everywhere, right? So Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, LinkedIn, TikTok. But also more valuable, I guess, would be the posts I create for them on my website. So there's images, there's additional details there for those videos. Also restarted my podcast. So the pubcast is back for 2000. So by the time anyone listens to this, that will be running again. So you can find the pubcast just by searching the pubcast with Jon Loomer, I guess. Otherwise, pubcast.jonloomer.com. So those are going to be just super short, 5 to 10 minute episodes. Not like this, that just super focused on one topic where I won't be rambling nearly as much as I rambled here today.
Everything was pure gold. So I appreciate that. And for everyone listening to this or watching this, why not? First, thank you for listening this far. And second, you can go to the DTCinsider.com. And once you find the episode, you will see the show notes, including the link to the podcast and, of course, the link to his website and every social media account he has. Jon, once more, it was a pleasure to have you here on the podcast. Thank you.
Great to be back. Looking forward to talking to you again next year.
Yes.
This episode was brought to you by BSR Digital. We help DTC brands grow through paid ads and email marketing campaigns. If you'd like us to help your business grow, head on over to bsrdigital.com and schedule a call with us.